But if you're watching Manchester United news and if you're watching the channel, then massive kudos and thank you, because the one thing I did want to do today probably was just curl up in a ball in the corner and cry after that last night, because I am really, really angry, not with the result, not about this horrific season, not with Amorim, not with the owners and the shit show of what is the football club right now, but angry because I dared to believe for 1 second that these players could show some fight, show some spirit, show that they actually are, decent footballers. I thought they would turn up, put in a performance, and I suppose I got exactly what I deserve, because lepers don't change their spots, and these players and this team and squad and everything like that have just proved once again that this is the worst team that I have ever witnessed in my lifetime. And I really hope that after this weekend, I don't have to see any of these, or a majority of these players in a Man United shirt ever again. It's the worst team I've seen in my lifetime, and we put in probably one of the worst performances I think I've seen in any final. What an absolutely shit show that was. I defended Amorim yesterday because this is not his team, it's not his players. But I think all the problems started with him yesterday as well. The team selection was incredibly naive at best. To not start Ugarte who's our only midfielder with legs and can put himself about against a Tottenham team that are all about kind of physicality and work rate in that midfield was insane to me. Luke Shaw's been missing for 2 years, starts a final. Mount's been missing for 2 years, starts in a final. Playing Bruno and Casemiro in midfield against a team with legs was insane to me. Højlund's had probably one of his better games recently, but it was still like playing with 10 men. And I said before the game, my biggest fear was Andre Onana, and that first cross that came in. He came out, was stood in no man's land, and filled everybody. And let me know if you agree with this in the comments. Filled everybody around him with absolutely zero confidence that he was going to be doing anything in that game other than making calamities or creating kind of chaos at the back as well, because it unsettled everybody. There's videos of Casemiro arguing with Onana. Obviously, the Dorgu one where Dorgu had to chest it out for a corner. Why is he not telling him what's going on? That's the second time this season that there's been a communication issue between Onana and Dorgu. And it was just an absolute shit show as well from the manager. I thought he totally got everything wrong last night, got absolutely schooled by Ange Postecoglou, and congratulations to Tottenham as well. You played the occasion and played the game, changed their tactics, changed their style of play to win a final, and that's what it's all about, winning a final. I couldn't give two shits if I was a Tottenham fan how they performed. The fact they had one shot and one lucky goal deflected or an own goal from Luke Shaw as well, who cares? They won a trophy and they've got all the kind of rewards from that as well. Yes, we were the better team, but who gives a shit when you don't win the game? It means nothing. But having said all of that, though, who can honestly sit there and say that even if he'd done that, and you'll all have your own opinions on the squad and the team selection and everything that's going on at United, right? We're all fans. We've all got different opinions. We all have different viewpoints on the club and on the players and performances and stuff, right? But the reality is, who can honestly say that even if you'd made the changes that you wanted, even if Garnacho had started and Ugarte had started and, Lindelof or whoever else you would have kind of put in that starting 11, who's to say that we would have played any different? Because nobody will know, because Ugarte's been really bad recently. Garnacho's been poor this season. Lindelof was the only other option at the centre-back, and he cost us the last Europa League final as well. So, the kind of issue is, yes, I'm going to criticise Amorim. I think he got the team selection completely wrong, and set us up completely wrong, and I think he is actually to blame for that kind of result. Is no late substitutions. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was sat there screaming after 50 minutes. Like, I would have made a change at half-time personally, but I'm not a professional football manager as well. But the problem is, like, who's to say that anybody would have done any different? And that's the problem with the squad, because you just don't know what you're getting. You don't know which player's going to turn up, which one isn't. Even the ones that you think, well, they might have had a good game or they may have made a difference. Really? Would they? Because how do you know that? Because the evidence is there that they've been absolutely consistently shit all season. And who's to say that they wouldn't have shit the bed in their position as well? And that's the problem with United for me. It's we've had a season where we've swapped managers halfway through, and we've had completely different play styles and different tactics, and all of that stuff. But the one common denominator in all of that is the players. The players were shit under Ten Hag, and they've been shit under Ruben Amorim as well. So the only kind of thing that I don't even want to say positive, optimistic, or hopeful about is that without us having European football, no Champions League, we don't need a massive squad going into next season now, because it's one game a week pretty much all season as well. It gives us the opportunity to finally have the fucking rebuild, get rid of some of these fucking players that have outstayed their welcome. Sorry to swear, but I told you I was angry at the start. And actually do something with these players, because it's the worst group of players I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. And the ultimate kind of issue, or the ultimate blame, has to fall at the ownership of this club. So the Glazer family will still get a bulk of my frustration, because they have been the ones that have overseen this absolute shower of shit. They're the ones that have got us in debt. They're the ones that are 5,000 miles away, just taking £1 billion out of the club while we're £1 billion in debt. So Jim, for kind of coming in and propping them up and keeping them in a position of power as well. Like, it's just a complete mess. But the one thing, like I said, the hope is now get rid of some of these players. Obviously, we can't get rid of all of them. If we could, I would. The only two players I would keep are Amad Diallo and Lenny. No, three. Amad Diallo, Lenny Yoro, and probably Patrick Dorgu. Everybody else could not give two shits about whether we sell them or not. I have no affiliation, no thoughts, no liking to a majority of these players as well, and it's really, really sad. And I am saying that in anger, and I will probably change my opinion in 5 minutes once I've calmed down as well. But no, I do genuinely think that, barring Amad, any player that was signed pre-Ineos, I think needs to go. I think they've outstayed their welcome. I think they are part of a toxic kind of mentality or toxic kind of culture that's happened behind the scenes as well. And so any player that's been signed pre-Ineos, apart from Amad Diallo, off you go. I would be looking to remove all of them, and I don't care if they're popular. And some of those players I like Harry Maguire, I like Bruno Fernandes, but part of the problem, in my opinion. But give us your thoughts on the match. Dare I ask? I will brace myself for what's coming in the comments as well. Be nice. But yeah, let's go through the rest of the news. So Avi Glazer and Avram Glazer and Jim Ratcliffe were booed by staff when they came on screen during a viewing party for last night's Europa League final in Manchester. So Laurie Whitwell has said that they put on like a viewing party for some of the staff that couldn't travel, and apparently when Avram Glazer and Jim Ratcliffe came on screen, they all booed. They were saying that they were booing at the end as well. Do you know what I mean? And that's the environment that's been created by the owners, and I include Sir Jim in that as well, with all the cutbacks and stuff. I get why having to do it. I don't want to kind of debate that or argue that kind of point, but the fact is that it is an absolute shit show behind the scenes as well. So if your staff are booing your owners, what does that tell you about the company that you're running and that you're in charge of? If I was in charge of a company and every time my staff saw me they were booing, that would exactly say to me that I am the problem. I am the problem, and I need to remove myself. Otherwise, that business is going under. But unfortunately, we're owned by the Glazers, who just do not give a shit. They don't care. They don't care about the club. They never have. They're just worried about their bank balance as well. And that's ultimately, that filters down. Shit rolls downhill. And when you've got shit owners, the shit just falls down the hill, and it infests everybody on its way down as well. But Luke Shaw, after the game, said, I can 100% say that so Amorim, is the right man for the job. I've been here a long time and I've had different coaches. Ruben, for me, I speak for myself and I can speak for all of the players, is 100% the coach we need to get this club back to where it should be. A lot of things need to change. That's obvious. That's why I say Amorim is 100% the right man. He knows what needs to be done. I believe he will do everything to make those changes and bring United back to the top. And then Luke Shaw also said we all have to question ourselves. if we are good enough to be here. And I would suggest, Luke Shaw, you probably start with the mirror on that one as well. One player that has massively outstayed his welcome and has been stealing away for years is Luke Shaw. Forget his ability and stuff. Do you know what I mean? The fact he's never been available for the last God knows how long. You need to start having a look at yourself in the mirror, and to come out with that quote is actually quite a kind of big statement to say. But there's £200,000 a week reasons why Luke Shaw's not going to go anywhere this summer, because if he genuinely felt, am I the right player to be at this squad, you'd probably be prepared to leave in the summer. But are you going to because of your wages? Probably not. And that's the problem with half of the squad and the team as well. Diego Dallo said that this club must not die and will never die. Being in pain is positive. It's the first step towards change. I actually like Diego Dallo's kind of conference, if you saw it as well. He was quite well spoken, I felt as well. Bruno Fernandes said that Amorim is the perfect coach for the period ahead. What happens this season doesn't change what we think of him. But then interestingly, Bruno said if the club thinks it's time to part ways because they want to do some cashing in or whatever, it is what it is. Football sometimes is like that. I've always said I will be here until the club says to me that it's time to go. I'm eager to do more, to be able to bring the club to the great days. The day that the club thinks I'm too much or it's time to part ways, football is like this. You never know, but it's like I've always said, I keep my word in the same way. So Bruno Fernandes effectively saying, look, he wants to stay, but if the club want to cash in on me, then it's entirely up to them, and I'd be happy to kind of leave as well. And to be fair, if you got £100 million offer from the Saudi Pro League for Bruno Fernandes as well, now the fact that we're not in the Champions League is what I think is a massive decision for the club to kind of make. And I don't want to be a hypocrite. I've defended Bruno, but his performance last night was absolutely shameful for a club captain to be giving the ball away. He's actually at fault for the goal, giving the ball away in midfield. I do blame Amorim for putting him in that position though as well. But, ultimately the players are the ones on the pitch that, it's not Amorim controlling the ball and making players give the ball away every 5 seconds or unable to make, 5-yard passes. Bruno shouldn't have been playing in the midfield, in my opinion, but that is what it is. It's done. And yeah, I would include Bruno. I think if you get a big offer for him, then yeah, sell him. Because I'm sick of watching the same players doing the same thing and having the same inconsistencies as well. But there's a big decision for the club to make if they do get that sort of offer for Bruno. Do we cash in? Is now the time? Give us your thoughts on that in the comments. And then Amorim on his quote said that if the board and the fans feel I'm not the right guy, I will go tomorrow. No compensation, but I will not quit. If I'm going to give up, I'm not going to give up. I have confidence in my work. I won't change anything about how I do things. We have 2 plans for the market. We have more time to work during the week and do better in the Premier League. That's what we're going to focus on. So Amorim saying, look, that's what the news that we've been saying recently around, obviously the transfer talk, transfer plan A and B for Champions League and no Champions League. Obviously, we know we're not in the Champions League now as well. So does that put to bed some of the rumours? I'll go through the transfer stuff in a bit as well for you. But does that put to bed some of the players that we've been linked with, Gyökeres, and there's an update on Cherki I'm going to go through in a second as well. Potentially, yeah. I would say so. And then he said it's clear. So it's clear. This is on the financial aspect of not playing in Europe, but we need to find a way to improve the team. So it's finding the way, selling players. Again, we'll go through some updates regarding, some exits we just mentioned there. Bruno potentially could be sold. Garnacho's another one. Obviously, he's not on social media. He's all over social media at the moment regarding some of his posts after the game as well. So yeah, I think there's ways we can kind of get money and stuff. It's just, we are going to have to trim the squad, and so be it. Amorim also said, on Amorim, the club and ownership are still behind Ruben Amorim and feel the fans are too. I think it's kind of split amongst yous watching, but give us your thoughts in the comments. Like here's where I kind of stand on the manager situation. This is just my opinion, right? And you will no doubt share yours in the comments, right? Is I don't believe Amorim's done a good job, but I don't think he was bought in to get the best out of his players. I think he's at fault massively for last night, though. I do think he ultimately in his decisions and his substitutions or lack of did cost us, but no one can guarantee that anyway, because who's to say if we started with different players and different teams, we probably might still have lost anyway, because, history would suggest, we're one of the worst teams in the Premier League. So, there's a question mark around it, but obviously, we're all geniuses in hindsight when it goes back to it, right? But Ruben Amorim for me is talking the talk and saying the right things in terms of what he wants to do, the rebuild, selling players. We're not good enough, and he kind of talks. The rhetoric he kind of says reminds me a little bit about Ralf Rangnick. Now, Ralf Rangnick I liked as well because he was saying the same things. We need open heart surgery. We need to kind of do this, and we need to do that. And the club bottled it with Ralf Rangnick, got rid of him, got another manager in, said to that manager, because Ten Hag was hired on his interview, that said he thinks he can get the best out of certain players within the squad and within the team. And the club completely ignored what Ralf Rangnick had said and went down the opposite route, which was backing the players again, which has now left us in this kind of situation, in my opinion. And Ruben Amorim knows what's needed, knows that there's some players here that are not good enough or toxic or, don't have the right mentality, the right attitude, the right team ethic, whatever you kind of say. Amorim knows that because he's told us in multiple press conferences as well that this is the worst team, and obviously he does shoulder most of the blame on that himself. But you've got to back him. Like, now is the time to do that. There's no point in sacking Amorim, getting another manager in who then says, oh, well, I think I can get the best out of Rashford and Antony, and, I'd love to bring Jadon Sancho back because they're all really good players, or, no, none of that nonsense. We've been down that road far too many times, which has led to exactly where we are now, and now is the time to start ripping it up. Rip up this squad and this team, because they have proven that they are consistently not good enough. Like, the team finished 8th last season, let's not forget. Yes, we won the FA Cup, which is still, a fantastic achievement, and still arguably a better season than what we've had this season, right? But statistically, we should have finished 14th last season. We outperformed our XG because Scott McTominay was coming in with late winners and late headers that actually boosted up our kind of league position. But we should have finished 14th last season, going off of all the stats and the data and stuff. And the fact we finished 8th, we actually overachieved. And who can tell me that we're any different now? We're not. I know we're a little bit lower in the league, but is there much? Would you be all happier if we were in 14th instead of 16th, possibly 17th? I couldn't give two shits where we finish in the league. It's embarrassing. It was embarrassing last season to finish 8th. Let alone 14th or 12th, or it doesn't really make a difference. So for me, Amorim needs to be given that kind of authority, and the club need to back him, not just by signing his players. We need to come away from that. We don't need to be getting players for Ruben Amorim as such, but let's just buy some quality players that can take this team forward. Please, can we just do that? And let's get rid of the dross that's been sat here for far too long, festering like a white turd in the corner. So I might edit that one out. I don't know. But let's go back to the news. So Garnacho come out with this kind of comment, and I don't know if you've seen it online, but his brothers who've been reposting stuff around it. But he said, I played every round to help the team reach the final, and today I got 20 minutes. I don't know. I'm going to try to enjoy the summer and see what happens next. This season was shit, losing a final and not beating anyone in the league. So that was an interview that he did on ESPN, in ESPN Argentina, effectively, effectively saying, well, I played every game, helped them reach the final, and then they didn't play the final, right? And this whole kind of situation, it reminds me a little bit about Jadon Sancho, right? Like, I agree with the argument. But, has Garnacho really been like, he went 25 games without a goal or something this season, and has hardly been, outstanding to the point where he's undroppable, in my opinion. And, but while I agree with the argument, though, I do agree with the argument, I just don't like the attitude. I do not like that sort of attitude around. And if that's the sort of things that's going on behind the scenes, that's the sort of toxicity we need to get out of the club, regardless of who the player is. And I like Garnacho, but I don't like this side of things. I don't like all this kind of noise. It comes across to me as just very selfish and not part of the team, and just purely out for yourself, saying, well, I deserve to be in the final. I only got 20 minutes, so we're going to wait and see what happens in the summer. I think he's going to go anyway, because we were looking to sell him in January. I don't think Ruben Amorim likes him for whatever reason, or rates him. I think he kind of played a majority of games just through default because we had injuries, like Amad Diallo got injured at the time. And then obviously Garnacho had to play because we got rid of Antony and Rashford because of their performances in January as well. Like, it's just a shit show. But like I said, I agree from Garnacho's perspective with the message. but not the attitude. Don't like that attitude personally. But again, you'll probably have different thoughts and feelings on that in the comments. So give us your shouts on that below. Now let's try to go through some of the some bits of transfer news for those that have stuck around this far. Fair play. So on the budget, so obviously not getting Champions League football has a massive impact on the summer transfer window. The Times were saying that Ruben Amorim will have a budget of over £100 million even without winning the Europa League. This figure is expected to be boosted by sales. United believe they can raise £100 million from the sales of Antony, Rashford and Sancho. And then if you factor in Garnacho going, like Bruno, potentially if he's sold as well. So there is ways that we can kind of make money. It's just like, it's not, for me, like it's just as important to get rid of players as it is to bring them in as well. And now is the opportunity to start the rebuild and actually do a rebuild, because we half-assed it in the past. We brought in a couple of players, but then expected the manager to polish the turds that were already in the squad, and then the manager gets sacked, and then you bring in another manager, brings in a couple of players, but then you're still trying to polish the turds that are already in the squad. Like, just get rid of them. Just bin them off. Even if you sell Bruno for 100 million, right, or 100 million plus, let's just take the losses, because you can use some of that money to take the losses on selling some of these players from a PSR perspective. Let's just do that, and let's actually kind of build a team or a team and a bench that's actually befitting of playing Premier League football, with some physicality, with some legs, with some some players that can actually pass the ball 5 yards to each other without it being 2 meters behind them, or outside of the foot lazy passes, which piss me off, by the way. But that's the kind of so there is ways that we can kind of make money. I don't go along with this narrative that we're dead and finished and stuff. It feels really bad at the moment, but if you recruit right, then I think we can start that kind of rebuild. But again, he needs to be backed. We need to see it. We need to get rid of some players, and we need to bring players in. On bringing players in, so Matheus Cunha will be Manchester United player in the first signing of the summer transfer window for United, so that one's ticking along. Romano also said that Manchester United will understand what kind of striker they can afford after the finals. Victor Gyökeres is the dream target. Man United is still there, but obviously if he wants Champions League football, we've got no hope of getting Victor Gyökeres now. And obviously financially, are we going to have to sell to buy, and then that's going to slow things down. So I think we can. I'm very worried that it's going to be Liam Delap now, but who's to say Liam Delap's going to want to come? So, we'll have to keep an eye on that one. So Manchester United have entered the race for Rayan Cherki. United reps held talks with Lyon when they met in the Europa League, and the result of today's final may play a role in Cherki's decision. That came out last night from Florian Plettenberg, who's a good source, and it goes along with the stories that I brought you yesterday, coming from a French news outlet, which was saying the same thing, that United have entered the race for Rayan Cherki. Patrick Berger, who's a good journalist as well, said that United have a strong interest in signing Cherki. United reps held talks with Lyon when they met in the Europa League, and result of today and the final may play a role in Cherki's decision. So there's two kind of German journalists pretty much saying the same thing, which sounds exactly like a brief. Florian Plettenberg and Patrick Berger, two different kind of decent sources of information as well, saying that we are interested in Rayan Cherki, but might be dependent on Champions League football. And seeing as we've binned that off now with that shower of shite last night, then is that another one that bites the dust? Who knows? On exits, Manchester United have put a £32.5 million price tag on Antony this summer. That came from Samuel Lucker. So again, one of the ways that we could potentially make some money is through sales, and Antony would be one of those. Fabrizio Romano said that Rasmus Højlund and Serie A clubs are a topic to watch in the summer transfer window. Samuel Lucas also said that senior figures at Manchester United have also lost confidence in Rasmus Højlund, who will be made available for transfer. So again, that's one to watch in the summer as well, because I do think we massively need to revamp this attack. I think Rasmus Højlund's been kind of poor at best to remain professional. I don't think it's his fault. I feel sorry for him. He's lost, devoid of any kind of confidence, but ultimately you are also responsible for your own performances as well. Like, there's only so you can't hold his hand all of the time. Sometimes you do have to kind of take a step back and say, Yeah, yes, I understand the confidence. I understand he's been thrown in the deep end. I understand, that we don't create chances for strikers and stuff. And I don't kind of judge strikers at United on goals necessarily. It's more about the contribution and what you're doing outside of that as well. And Rasmus Højlund has covered himself in absolutely zero glory this season because, if anything, I think he's got progressively worse as the season's gone on. There could be factors for that as well, but I do think we need to have a serious look at Rasmus Højlund in the summer as well. And if it's a loan with an obligation to buy, or even just loan him back to somewhere in Italy to try and regain some kind of form, then so be it, because the attack goals win you games, and we've lost games this season because we simply cannot score goals. And Rasmus Højlund, whether you like it or not, is part of that problem. So give us your thoughts on that in the comments. Give us your thoughts on all the other topics discussed in today's video. That's you all up to date with all the latest news. Thank you to anyone who's watched the video until the end, because I totally get it. I understand. It's the worst season I've ever kind of witnessed. So massive shout out to yourselves if you got this far in the video as well. Let me know what you think down below. Smash a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new. See you in the next one.